Welcome, everyone. My name is Liz Skates. I'm a product manager here at Salesforce. Today, we're going to be talking about how to get insights for your sales team regarding their pipeline. I'm sure you're familiar with this already. I'm going to be sharing with you some features that may be forward-looking. Some of these features are already available. Some of these features are coming in the Summer 19 release, but please make your purchasing decisions based on currently available product. So let's talk about this sales pipeline. Have you ever been in a meeting like this? Salespeople, sales managers, they might be asking something like, have any deals been pushed out? Have any deals shrunk? Are we building pipeline? I'm not in sales. Do you guys know what those questions are really asking? Well, if we think about it another way, a way that I can understand better, because I'm more familiar with Salesforce, when a salesperson is asking if a deal's been pushed out, they're usually asking if the close date on the opportunity record has changed on any of the deals. And then if they're asking about whether any deals have shrunk in value, they're usually asking, did the amount on the record change recently? And then if a salesperson is asking if we are building pipeline, what are they asking? They're asking if the value of your pipeline has also changed recently. Now, each of these questions, I said, they're looking for some field, some value to change. With these three questions, they're really just asking, what's changed since the last time we met? Maybe we met last week to review our pipeline. We're meeting again this week. What's changed? Those three questions are kind of getting at the same thing. And when you have questions that ask about change over time, maybe historical tracking reports are the tool that you need to answer those questions about change. So, remember, a couple of those questions that they were asking. Have any of those deals been pushed out? Have any deals shrunk in value? They want to inspect these deals, ensure that we're doing everything we can to win those deals fast. So when they're inspecting deals, a normal report in Salesforce might look like this. And that tells you exactly what your deals are worth today, when they're projected to close today, but that doesn't tell you if those have changed since last week. So how do you find out if the deals have shrunk or been pushed out? You would have pulled that same report last week. Maybe you would download it to a spreadsheet. And then this week, in anticipation for that next sales pipeline review meeting, you'd pull that same report again, and then download that into probably the same spreadsheet, and then compare this week's report to last week's report, and then you say, oh, I think some of the values might have changed, and that's how you do it. That's a manual process. It might work. How much time does that take to do? What if you forget to pull that report this week? What if you go on vacation? What if you're sick? Who's going to do this? What if you don't have that data now from this week and then you forget it next week? Do you have that information? So this is a manual process. It works. We have something better for you. What if you did this with historical tracking reports? So here's a standard report. It gives you the current status. It doesn't tell you whether things have shrunk since any point in time. But if you use a historical tracking report, you get some extra data here. You get some extra columns. Now you see this additional change column that says, hey, from 1 week ago to today, this particular deal shrunk by $15,000. Or this deal was actually pushed out by 28 days. You just pull that one report. You can go on vacation, but then next time you go to that pipeline review meeting, just pull the same report, and it'll tell you what changed from that last time till today. So now, right away, you can say, that deal shrunk by 25%. I need to talk to that sales rep. Now, this report here is just showing what? 8 different records. Some of them have changed, some of them haven't. What if your team is chasing 100 different deals at the same time? Maybe you're a high-volume sales team. It's going to be hard to go through this report and look for those. They're colored red and green. But maybe it's better for you to focus on just the deals that have shrunk or been pushed out. So let's just filter it. That's also available in a historical tracking report. Don't worry about any of those other deals. They're probably fine. These are the deals that have red flags. They either shrunk in value or they were pushed out. Simple. Just focus on these three. Let's inspect those three. There was a third question in that review meeting. They wanted to know, hey, are we building pipeline? How do you normally measure how well your pipeline is today? You might have a lot of metrics. You might build a dashboard with your standard reports that find out, well, how long does it take to close a deal? How big are our deals? What's our pipeline to quota ratio? These are all current snapshots that might give you an indication of how healthy your pipeline is. That's useful. Does it tell you if you're building pipeline? Does it tell you if your pipeline is bigger than it was last week, last month? So with a historical tracking report, you can compare what your pipeline looked like back in February, 2 months ago, 1 month ago, to today. Here, in this example, I have the pipeline broken out by, hey, the deals we're chasing for new customers, the deals we're chasing for upgrades, and then any replacement deals. So it's just broken out by the type of deal. And then for each of the types of deals, it's what did our pipeline look like 3 months ago, 2 months ago, 1 month ago, and today. Just by looking at this report, I see a trend for those deals that we're doing upgrades. It's going a little bit down. What does that say about our pipeline? That's pipeline consumption. Are we building pipeline in that? For the new deals that we're chasing, the pipeline, the value of that pipeline has gone up the past few months. That means there's pipeline growth. In that case, we are building pipeline. So this report actually answered that question. So now, if you include that with the other metrics you have in your dashboard, this will really answer the questions that the team is asking. You get a better picture of how well your pipeline is doing. Okay? How do we build those two reports that I just showed you? Let's walk through that. First, historical tracking reports actually have to be turned on. You have to tell Salesforce, I want to track specifically these deals, let's say opportunity records. So in setup, you would actually search for historical tracking. Actually, it's called historical trending in setup. And within the historical trending page, you can choose which objects you want to actually track to see how they changed. In this case, we're looking for the opportunity object. Make sure that it's enabled for historical trending. By default, there are 5 fields that we track, but you can choose 3 more for a total of 8 to track. Make sure that's set up, and do that now, because you want to have tracking from as early as possible. Okay? So once you start trending, now you have a snapshot every day of what those deals look like. Okay, now that it's set up, we're tracking how these deals change in Salesforce. Let's create that first report. Remember, the first report is we want to find those deals that have shrunk or been pushed out, right? So that our team can inspect the deals. So what we do is we create a new report in the Reports tab. And because we've enabled historical trending, there's actually a new report type available to you called Opportunities with Historical Trending. So when you create a report with that new report type, you'll see that there's actually a new section here called Snapshot Dates. You could choose up to 5 different snapshot dates that you want to compare with the current value of your deals. So in this case, we're going to choose from 1 week ago. We want to compare last week to this week, not yesterday. And I'm not interested in looking at a lot of the fields. I'm just looking at, I'm interested in looking at just the amount, what it's worth today versus historically, last week, and the close date, whether it was pushed out. So I'm getting rid of a lot of extra fields. I'm just looking at the historical amount, the current amount, the historical date, close date, and it shows you what those values are last week to today. But it might be nice, and they do highlight in colors whether the value changed. but you have some options available to you to actually see how much they changed. Say, hey, show me another column. Show me actually how much it changed. So it changed by 2 days. It got pushed out, pulled in by 16 days. And you can also say, hey, if it got pushed out, it's actually a bad thing. So let's highlight the ones that got pushed out in red. And then for the amount, let's show how much it changed also in a separate column. And then if the amount increases, that's good, so that should be in green. But if it goes down, it should be highlighted in red. The other thing is, hey, remember, we want to look at all the opportunities that we're chasing. In this case, let's say we're interested in all the deals we're trying to close for the full year, let's say. But remember, it's a big, long list. We only want the opportunities that shrunk or were pushed out, right? And not all of these shrunk or were pushed out. So we're going to add another filter so that we don't see so many records. We're going to say, hey, if the historical amount, if the amount last week was greater than the amount, so we're going to look at a field, the current amount. So if last week the amount was bigger than this week, then we're interested in looking at that deal. What about the close date? The close date last week, was that an earlier date? Was that less than the close date today? Then that means it was pushed out. But we're not interested in just deals that shrunk and were pushed out. We want to look at deals that shrunk or were pushed out. So we say 1 or 2. So only shrunk or pushed. And so that actually gives us more deals that either shrank or were pushed out. And you get this report now. And now you know, hey, this one shrunk even though it got pulled in by 2 days. And the rest of these were pushed out. These reps are going to be expecting a call from me. Right? All right. So that was a very useful report for you to inspect your deals. Now, the next thing we wanted to build was a dashboard, a chart that tells us whether our pipeline grew or not. We're going to create a report again. It all starts with a report. And again, you want to use that new report type that's available to you, opportunities with historical trending. And this time, the snapshots that we want to look at, remember, we want to compare 3 months ago to 2 months ago to 1 month ago to today. So we're going to choose different snapshots here. 3 months ago, 2 months ago, 1 month ago, and then today is always available to us. Get rid of all the other fields that we're not interested in. Now, remember, the value of the pipeline is what we're looking at. We want to see if it's grown. So we want to look at the amount historical field, and we want to sum up how much each deal is worth to a sum total. And remember, I was interested in breaking out our pipeline by the new deals versus the upgrades versus the replacements. So I grouped that by type. Automatically now, it groups it also by each of the snapshot dates. So I get a subtotal of what our pipeline was worth each month by type. And I could look at these numbers. That will tell me if the pipeline grew or not. But I like to look at charts. Oops. First, we're going to filter and make sure we're looking at all the deals for the current year that we're chasing. And it's still going to give me some numbers, but let's save that for now. We're going to be using it in a dashboard. I'm going to call this a pipeline growth report. And then rather than just looking at these numbers, when they render, I can add a chart, so it's a little bit easier to tell whether there's been growth. So I can just choose a chart. I like to have the columns. And the breakdowns are by type and by snapshot, which is what I want. So this is the visualization I want. So I'm going to save that. And since that's the chart I want to add to the dashboard, I'm just going to directly add it to the dashboard. And I have one that exists already. That's called a pipeline health dashboard. Just going to use the same chart that I created in my report. All right, so it's a little bit flat for my upgrades, but I can see that my pipeline for my new customer deals is actually growing, so that's actually good news. So isn't that important for your sales team to know? All right, so that's how you go build that dashboard. Your sales team is going to thank you for that information. So that was a sales example of what you can track with these historical tracking reports. You are not limited to just your pipeline. You can track cases, forecasts, and up to 3 custom objects. You can choose up to 8 fields in each object that you want to track over the past few months. And as I showed you earlier, because you have the ability to filter based on how certain fields compare to each other, it's much more powerful and lets you zero in on what's most relevant. If you're very familiar with reporting, I just want you to distinguish between historical tracking reports and reporting snapshots and auditing use cases. This is not an auditing use case. We don't track every single change history. This is just to compare 2 snapshots. And this does not support year over year, right? And a lot of times for year over year trending, you're just looking at the revenue, which is not going to change from last year. You might want to reference that value from last year, but that number is not going to change, so it's not necessarily a historical tracking use case. So this, what I showed you is not necessarily for these scenarios. If you have any more questions, you want to learn more about reports, we have some Trailhead modules and a super badge available for you to continue your journey on reports and dashboards. And if you have any other questions, I'm here. Yes, you have to enable it in setup. So for yes, to get the opportunities for historical trending report type available to you, it was actually, let me show you in this video. Let's see here. This will show you like, whoops. Yeah. It will show you in setup, you have to enable the historical trending, and then you will see the report type when you create a report. Yes? Yeah, so if you're only interested in how the stage changed, you'd probably choose 5 different dates that you want to see how it compared, what the stage looked like on those 5 different dates. And so you'd probably have a report where it would have one column for the historical date for, let's say, 5 weeks ago, what the stage looked like 4 weeks ago, what the stage looked like 3 weeks ago, and then you'd have 5 different columns of different values. Yeah. Yes? That's the first time I've actually heard that people did not want to track those 5 fields in an opportunity. I see. It is not on the roadmap. I think if it's important, like, please reach out. I've got my email address, and let me know how important that use case is, and we can evaluate. Yes? Yes, so to create the I'm sorry, that's why you don't see it. Summer 19 is when the report type will be available for you to create that report. In spring 19, you can view the historical trending report in Lightning, but to create them in Lightning, it's the summer 19 release. Sorry about that. So summer 19 is coming out in a couple weeks for most of you. So mid-June. So. So you can, there is a classic editor, like the edit in classic or create in classic option usually. If you create a report in classic, then you have that report type available to you.
So I create the report type in classic, or create the report in classic.
Yes, and then you can view it in either classic or in Lightning for right now.
But not change it until this.
In summer 19, you can create and view in Lightning. Yes. All right. Yes. So when you turn on that historical trending for a particular object, you can choose up to 5 snapshots anytime in the past few months. Yeah. Thank you.